Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 38th favorite dad in the family community, Papa West, Jacob West, back for another episode of TMG Takes the Field, the most unprofessional sports podcast in the world. How unprofessional is it? I'm in my parents' basement right now. This is the first episode I've done since September. But you know what? I'm having a whole lot of fun doing these. I hope y'all are having a lot of fun watching these whenever they do come out. That being said, I do apologize. Hey, I've had a really bad 2 years. I'll be the first person to admit it. That being said, I did do a very big move very recently in my life. Like I said, I'm in my parents' basement right now. Have you been following TMG trivia? There are a couple videos on there, or if you watch any of the debates, I know for a fact there is one where I'm in this new setup. You were in my kitchen. You could see my kitchen. You were on my kitchen table. I have recently moved. I kind of did a big, about an hour and a half south, but I'm still in Wyoming right now. It was just time for a change of scenery, as I like to say. Is that going to mean more episodes more regularly? Not at all. That's not what it's going to mean. I'm going to try. I will tell you right now, I will try. Is it going to happen? Who knows? 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'm sure I'll do them semi-regularly. But that being said, not the last time I saw y'all, because I was trying to do talk about the week that just happened, especially the football, NFL, and college football. Did a little brief rundown on the World Cup before that started, but I needed to do a video after college football was done and after the NFL regular season was done, because guess what? They both ended right around the same time. The NFL regular season ended on Sunday. College football had their national championship Monday. So we are about to get into NFL playoffs, which means the main two sports that I talk about are coming to an end. What does that mean? It means I'm going to try to do something very special. We'll see here in the next couple of weeks if I can keep it going. I'll kind of give a brief rundown of that at the very end of this episode. But, so again, not the last time y'all saw me. It was, I believe, August 30th. I just saw the date. It was towards the end of August. I made some bold predictions regarding college football and the NFL. And it's about time we go over those. Again, college football did just end. NFL playoffs are starting this weekend. So I did predict what the playoffs would be. We can definitely go over both of those. Kind of also talk a little bit about the college football bowl season, kind of what went down. Talk about some major highlights in the NFL. And then I also did want to talk a little bit about the World Cup. And if you're watching and you want to bring up a topic too, let me know. And we'll talk about it. And it could very well be like, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, well. So that being said, I definitely needed to make the comment. In Major League Baseball, October, we had the World Series where the Astros beat somebody. Who did they beat? Off the top of my head, I do not remember right now. The Phillies. That's who they beat. They beat the Philadelphia Phillies. I could not tell you in how many games they did it. I want to say 6. It could have been 5. I'm pretty sure the Phillies won a couple games. Congratulations, Houston. I cannot wait for in 5 years there to be another story about how y'all cheated on this one. If not, congratulations, you can win one fairly. But with that being said, let's get into the FIFA World Cup. Argentina won. The final saw Argentina take on France. Most people said that this was the best World Cup finals they have seen. To be fair, I didn't watch it because it happened while I was busy Sunday morning. But most of those games, all of the games were kind of in the morning hours. So I did watch some. Did end up working out that a lot of the games were during my lunch break, or I was off during some. Again, I was in the process of moving in November. So I used to work 2 jobs. In November, I quit the second one, so I was only working my one main job, which meant I had weekends off again. So I was able to watch some games Saturday and Sunday during that time. A little bit Sunday because I go to church on Sundays. But I did get to watch a little bit of it. Major news as far as the World Cup goes. USA did fairly well as an American. I don't know if any of y'all watched it. We did get second place in our group. England won it, but we got second place with a win against Iran, clinching that second place berth. And then taking on the Netherlands, where I believe we lost 3-1. Very, very hard fought game. That being said, we did have one of the youngest teams. So hey, next World Cup, which I believe is going to be in North America, both U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So hey, who knows? I might be rich enough and buy tickets to actually go watch a game. Who knows? That's in 4 years. We'll talk in 4 years. Other kind of big news with the World Cup. Morocco was a very fun Cinderella story, making it. I believe they made it to the semifinals where they lost to Argentina, or they might have lost to France. I'm not looking at it right in front of me. I'm just going off of memory at this point. So that was really fun to see. It's always fun to see those Cinderellas, kind of see what happens. No one was expecting Morocco. I was kind of thinking Japan would make a nice little run. I believe they got out in the round of 16, or might have been the second round, because I think they beat Spain. But that being said, the finals was France versus Argentina. Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi were tied. I believe 5 goals apiece for the Golden Boots. Kylian Mbappe with a hat trick. Messi only with 2 goals. Kylian Mbappe is your Golden Boot winner of this World Cup. Unfortunately, he was not able to lead his team to victory as Argentina won. I believe it was 4-2 in penalties. But it was still an amazing effort by Mbappe, because I believe it went 3-3. It was 2-2 in the first 90 minutes. Argentina scored 2 pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure before the first half was even over. And then Mbappe in like the 87th and 88th minute scored. One was a penalty, the other one was just a normal goal. And then Argentina in the golden goal extra times scored pretty early again. Then right towards the end of it, Mbappe was able to get another penalty kick. Me personally, I was kind of hoping England would win. They lost to France in the second round of the knockout stages. But that being said, hey, it was still a fun tournament. And then, of course, Argentina being the first non-European team of this millennia to win the World Cup. It has strictly been European teams. Brazil, I believe, was the last one. They might have won it in 2002, or it was 1998. So it's been Europe's trophy for the longest time. But now it is in Argentina. I believe this is their 3rd win, and then this also kept France from winning back-to-back, which hasn't happened since Brazil did it a while back ago. So congratulations, Argentina. Congratulations, Lionel Messi. I'm not a big fan of Messi. I will be the first person to admit it. Nothing against the guy. But, hey, just like I said about Tom Brady, I have to give credit where credit is due. Messi, you did a great job. They lost to Saudi Arabia in the very first match of this World Cup. And they were able to bounce back, not only win their group, but make it to the finals and inevitably win against France. A lot of people are calling Messi the GOAT. I'm not quite there, but congratulations, Messi. Also, talking about soccer news, we did unfortunately lose the true GOAT, and that is Pele. I believe he had a heart attack very recently, which he did end up passing from it. The true GOAT, Pele, will always have a room in my heart. So that being said, we are going to be done with soccer for a little bit as I get rid of that banner. It's not going away. That's okay. NCAA football. I generally save NCAA football for the very end. I'm doing this now. Why? I don't know. It's the show. So I did find I took a picture of my whiteboard for my predictions. So I do have the ability to see what I predicted. And so we'll go over it right now. The only downside is I didn't write down matchups. I just wrote down who won. So I have to kind of go off of memory with all of this, which everybody knows my memory is horrible. So first off, we have the ACC championship game. I predicted North Carolina would win it all. North Carolina, they did decent this year. I believe they were very close to making the championship game. They did make the championship game. I'm pretty sure I predicted this championship game. I could be mistaken. I predicted UNC, and I'm pretty sure I picked them to beat Clemson. It's actually the other way around. Clemson beat North Carolina 39-10. Clemson actually had a surprisingly good season. In my opinion, I did not expect them to do that well. Their quarterback, I believe it's DJ Uiagalelei. It's a weird name, just like Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not a big fan of his. He was able to get, I believe they finished at 10-2. They were barely outside playoff contention due to their very last game before the championship game, where they lost to South Carolina. That did knock them out of the playoff race, which they might have made the playoffs had they have beaten South Carolina. But that being said, Clemson, congratulations, they did win the ACC. I didn't get that one right. It happens. Next, we're going to go to the Big 12, my favorite conference. I predicted Texas to win. I don't remember if I picked them to go up against Oklahoma. I know for a fact I made the comments. I'd love to see them play TCU, but I don't think they'll play TCU. I was right. They did not play TCU because Texas did not make it to the Big 12 championship. Texas, again, had a decent year. A lot better than most people were expecting. Their biggest showout was in week 2 against Alabama, where they barely lost. That being said, I believe that game was in Austin, but they lost, I believe, 3 games in the Big 12, so they were not able to make it. The team that won the Big 12 championship was Kansas State, someone nobody expected them to take on, versus the team I wanted to make it, TCU. TCU, of course, had a very big Cinderella season. We'll talk about how that ended here in a second. Unfortunately, I'm a little upset about it. Obviously, you know why. TCU had that miracle season where they finished undefeated throughout the actual regular season. They beat Kansas State pretty early on, but Kansas State was able to bounce back and make it to the Big 12 championship. I believe they lost 2 games, and they did end up beating TCU 31-28. This was a really exciting game because TCU's season has pretty much been give up a lead during the first half and then come back at the end to win it. They end up going into overtime. TCU kicked a field goal. Kansas State scored a touchdown. They didn't need an extra point. So that's why they end up winning by 3. So congratulations, Kansas State. Fun fact, they got hammered against Alabama in their bowl game. Next, I talked about the Big Ten. I believe I predicted Iowa versus Ohio State. I'm pretty sure I talked about the Ohio State-Michigan game being what would decide who went on, and I said Ohio State would beat Michigan, which didn't happen. I thought it was in Columbus. Not really a fan of the Michigan's team. I don't think they have as good of a team as they did last year. I was wrong. Cade McNamara was not their starting quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, I believe is his name. Much better quarterback. That's all I'll say. They have a much better quarterback. They actually had a much better team. Did exactly what they did last year, went undefeated throughout the regular season. and they ended up playing Purdue. I had Iowa win. Iowa did not do well this year. In fact, shortly after I made that prediction video, I was visiting family during Labor Day weekend, and the entire time, my brother and my dad made fun of me for predicting Iowa to do decent. This is also right after I believe they played South Dakota State, where they won like 7-3 and didn't score a touchdown. Yeah. As soon as that game was over, I'm like, there's no way Iowa's doing anything this year. And they didn't. Unfortunately, I made my predictions before I watched that game. So that being said, Michigan did beat Purdue 43-22. Michigan repeated this year. They are back-to-back Big Ten champions. Are they going to be three-time next year? We'll see. I don't think so. And I'll explain why very soon. Next, I did talk about the Pac-12 championship game. I predicted Utah to win it all. Did I predict them to play USC? I don't remember, but I'm going to go with it because why not? But also, the reason I want to say that, if I can find that specific game, hey, I found it. Utah did beat USC. Utah 47, USC 24. Utah had a very good season this year. I believe 2 losses throughout the regular season. They had that really exciting game against Florida, where Florida was able to come out right at the very end and come back to win it. I don't remember who they lost to the second time, but this was a repeat game. Utah did beat USC earlier in the season, handing USC their only loss. And then before this game started, USC was in 4th place. They did have that final spot in the college football playoffs. Unfortunately, with that loss, it did give them their second loss, which there was a team with 1 loss that did bounce them out of the playoffs, where they ended up playing Tulane in, I believe it was the Cotton Bowl, which I'll talk about bowl games here in a second. Utah, I got a prediction right. Go, Jacob. And then the last one that I talked about was the SEC. I predicted Alabama to win it all. Fun fact, guys, Alabama wasn't even in it. One of the biggest things, and I know for a fact this is what I predicted. I predicted Alabama versus Florida in the SEC championship. I don't remember if I talked about records at this point, but I did think that Florida would be undefeated going into it, and Alabama maybe 1 loss, maybe undefeated. But I did predict Alabama to beat Florida. Neither of those teams made it. Instead, we had Georgia versus LSU. I know for a fact I did not think Georgia would be in there because Georgia pretty much had an entirely different defense going into this season. Almost every defensive starter, I think it was like 10 of 11, ended up getting drafted into the NFL. And so definitely was not expecting their defense to be as good this year as it was last year. That being said, they did lose some key offensive weapons too, but they still had Stetson Bennett, who I'm a big fan of at quarterback, as y'all remember from last year. And he did lead that team to an undefeated season this year where they finished number 1 overall. And then they played LSU, who had a very surprise team this year. They ended up finishing with 3 losses throughout the regular season, but they beat Alabama, which is always a fun game to watch. Kind of had that little Cinderella role. Kelly, they had a new coach. I cannot remember his first name. It's not Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is UCLA. Used to be Notre Dame, and I cannot think of his name, and it's killing me. But he did lead LSU, which they lost like the first game of the season this year. So they were able to bounce back, do a lot better than most people were expecting. Getting into the SEC championship, where they did lose, it was 50-30. That being said, I did not write down playoffs. I'm not gonna try to remember who I had in the playoffs. I remember Alabama and Florida because I'm pretty sure I said that was going to be the national championship. I could be very wrong on that. But this year's Final Four, was at number 1 Georgia, at number 2 Michigan, number 3 TCU, and then number 4 Ohio State. I'll go ahead and talk about the first round of the playoffs now. I'm going to try to see if I can get the scores up very quickly. Of course, that first game was the 2-3 matchup, Michigan versus TCU. I will say this was a interesting one in the West household because, as you all know, I'm a big TCU fan. You might not know my brother; he is a big Michigan fan. Fortunately, though, both of us were working, so we could not be sitting next to each other watching this game because that would have been a really bad household to be a part of. That being said, TCU did beat Michigan 51-45. Very high scoring game. Very fun game to watch. Michigan played a little more sloppy than TCU did. TCU able to capitalize on some very key turnovers. But that being said, Michigan did come back. I believe it was 21-9 at halftime. So it was definitely not looking like Michigan could do anything right. They did come back. They didn't have the lead, but they were definitely nipping at TCU's heels. TCU just was able to keep their lead big enough so that Michigan could not come back. And then that night we had Georgia versus Ohio State. Georgia was victorious 42-41. Ohio State actually only team this year that showed that Georgia could be beaten. Ohio State came to got the lead very quickly. It was 21-7 in the second quarter. They ended up finishing the first half 28-24. Georgia kind of pulled back, got the lead back, but Ohio State was able to finish out with the lead, and then get another 10 points in the third quarter. Then Georgia was able to come back with, I believe, 17 points in the fourth quarter to get the lead, where they had the 1 point lead. And then Ohio State had that 50-yard field goal to end up winning it that went wide left. So definitely first team to show Georgia can bleed. They just were not able to finish the job. So we had our national championship matchup, TCU versus Georgia. You had the Cinderella team, TCU, has never been to a national championship. 2010 and 2011, they got very close. Both years they went undefeated. However, the first year, I don't remember the two teams that made the national championship. Both teams undefeated. But then you had TCU and Boise State. Both were two undefeated teams. Ended up going to the Fiesta Bowl, where Boise State came out with the win. And then the very next year, Boise State did not have that Cinderella season like they did the year before. TCU, however, did. They finished undefeated again, but they did finish number 3. There were two other teams who had much better records because they were bigger conferences. TCU was Mountain West at this time. That being said, they did win a bid to play in the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin, in which they won. Georgia, however, of course, big SEC school. Everybody thought an SEC school would go. There was that big scare with Ohio State, but they did pull out against Ohio State, and then they're also the returning national champions. So they're going for the first repeat win since Alabama did it a while ago. I remember exactly when they did, but it was not a contest. Georgia laid the smackdown on TCU, 65-7. This game was over by the first quarter. Unfortunately, at first quarter it was 17-7. TCU was able to get one touchdown, which was a 2-yard run by Max Duggan. There was a 60-yard pass right before that led to the run. They unfortunately could not do anything after that. Again, I was very upset about that, but hey, they played Georgia. I wasn't really expecting them to win. But I did want to kind of talk about just a couple other bowl games. Of course, we do have the New Year's Six Bowls, which we did talk about. I believe it was the Fiesta Bowl and then the Peach Bowl. We also had the ReliaQuest Bowl, Mississippi State and Illinois. The reason I'm talking about this one, Mississippi State just lost their head coach, Mike Leach, right before this game. Shortly after Thanksgiving, he was in the hospital for breathing problems. He did end up passing away from it. Most of y'all should know I grew up in Texas. Throughout my high school years, I wasn't a big Texas Tech fan because I was a TCU fan, but I definitely followed Texas Tech over most of the other Texas universities. Mike Leach was the Red Raiders coach. I got to see him in person where they played Rice. So I was a very, very big Mike Leach fan. He did end up getting fired in Texas Tech in the middle of the season, I believe. I'm not going to go into detail because of what happened on there. But he was able to get a job, I believe, at Eastern Carolina. Coached there for a little bit. Then ended up going to Washington State and then finished his career in Mississippi State. Most well known for the air raid offense. Texas Tech is very known for that, mainly because of Mike Leach. So Mississippi State was able to get the win 19-10 against Illinois in his honor. Couple other fun ones. Penn State beat Utah 35-21 in the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. And then Tulane beat USC 46-45 in the Cotton Bowl. And that was another really fun one because Tulane was able to come back. I believe the graphic was showing USC has put in $30 million into their football program, Tulane about $5 million. So huge difference there. Of course, we had Caleb Wilson, who was the Heisman winner this year, and Lincoln Riley, hoping to bounce back from that Utah loss in the Pac-12 championship. Very good game by both teams. It came down right to the end. Alabama beat Kansas State 45-20 in the Sugar Bowl. I believe it was like 10-7 for a while. Kansas State was winning, and I'm like, can they actually do it? And the next thing you know, Alabama is up 35-10. I'm like, nope, they can't do it. Another fun one, Tennessee beat Clemson 31-14. Tennessee had a really fun year this year. I believe his name is Hooker, their quarterback that they had, who did amazing, but then ended up tearing his ACL right at the end of the year. Of course, they had that very exciting game against Alabama. I believe it was against Georgia when they did in fact lost. They did get their first loss, which I believe is when he got injured, which they went downhill. Joe Milton, backup quarterback, did play very well. 250 yards, 3 touchdowns to get them the win. And then, of course, because I live in Wyoming, Wyoming did lose to Ohio 30-27 in the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. Just doing a quick run through. I don't really want to talk about every single bowl game because for those of you who don't know, there are a lot of bowl games. But that being said, we do want to say congratulations to Georgia for winning the national championship this year. Am I going to do a really early prediction for next year? Sure, why not? I did kind of talk about it. Is Georgia going to repeat? No. Georgia will have another great year, though. I'm going to say it right now. They might win the East. I do not think that they will win the SEC championship game. I do not think that they make the playoffs. They do have a really young team this year, but again, their big quarterback Stetson Bennett is a senior. He will be not playing college football. I don't know I think he's good enough to make it to the NFL. That being said, he is the same age as Lamar Jackson, so he's getting old. He's 25. I did just kind of talk about Michigan a little bit ago. I do not think that they will repeat. I realize I'm going to get a lot of hate from this, mainly from my brother. It is kind of sounding like Jim Harbaugh will not be in Michigan next year. Now, does that mean that they are not going to make the playoffs because of that? Yeah, I'll say it. Why not? TCU, I do not think TCU will have as good of a year. I think that they will be in the Big 12 championship, but regardless if they win or lose, I do not think that they will make it to the playoffs. Max Duggan, this is his final year. They also had receiver, one of their star receivers. This was his last year also. Those are just to name a couple. A lot of seniors on that team. And then Ohio State. Ohio State always has a good team. Yeah, I think they'll make the playoffs next year, mainly because I have to put one of them through. They are losing C.J. Stroud. I think he's a senior. If not, he's definitely predicted to get the first to be the first pick, or if not the first, one of the first. Because I'll talk about the draft here in a second too, because we can kind of talk about that. With that being said, that's really all I have for college football. Not a whole lot more there. But I am going to go ahead and go into the NFL. I have to find. There we go. I found my predictions for the NFL. My predictions were I had Buffalo, Cincinnati, Tennessee, and Las Vegas to win their respective divisions in the AFC. The Chiefs, Jacksonville, and Denver to be wild cards. And then in the NFC, I had Green Bay, Tampa Bay, the Rams, and then the Eagles to win their respective divisions. Cardinals, Vikings, and Saints to be in the wild card. How well did I do? I did a lot better on this one. We'll go ahead and go with the first one. Buffalo is who I predicted to be. I predicted them to be number one overall. They very well could be number one in the AFC. I'm not going to get into details about what will happen because we should all know what happened with Damar Hamlin and then that game in general. And you can be upset about it, or hey, the guy is doing great. He is breathing, which is definitely a huge blessing. And hey, it was just a game. In the grand scheme of things, it kind of didn't matter. Because I'm sure there's some tiebreaker where Kansas City would have gotten it regardless of what Buffalo did. Having said, I'm pretty sure they played each other and Buffalo won this year. So Buffalo would have owned the tiebreaker. So Buffalo would have been the number one overall seed. Yeah. Buffalo did, in fact, win their division. Next, I did predict Cincinnati to win the AFC North. Fun fact, guys, Cincinnati did win the AFC North. It was getting a little scary. They started out 0-2 this year. They started out Joe Burrow getting sacked like 20 times in the first 3 games, which was not expected because they did spend a lot of money on that offensive line. They did get some really good signs during free agency. But they were able to pull it out, and they did, in fact, get the win. Those are the only 2 conferences that I got right. I did predict that Tennessee would win the AFC South. They got close. They were in it up until the very end. But unfortunately, most people would say injuries did plague this team too much. Mainly, Derrick Henry did miss a couple key games, but also Tannehill missed a good portion of the season, especially the last 2 games where Josh Dobbs got signed to the team and started for Tennessee. And then the final game, they played Jacksonville. Winner wins the division. And they did not get the win. That being said, Jacksonville, kind of a surprise, getting the first overall draft pick this offseason, or this past offseason, being able to turn this team around to win it, to win the division. I did predict this team to make the playoffs. I predicted them to be a wild card. I did say Doug Peterson would be able to kind of crack some ground with Trevor Lawrence. Hey, guys, it happened. I called it. Jacksonville to be a playoff team. I just didn't predict them to be as good of a playoff team as they are. They're hosting a playoff game. It's gonna be great. And that being said, next we're going to go to the AFC West. I predicted the Raiders to win. That was very far from the truth. The Raiders did not make the playoffs. This was definitely one of those divisions. A lot of people thought was going to be a lot better than it was. Most people thought all 4 teams could make the playoffs. Fun fact: only 2 did. Of course, you did have the Chiefs. I thought they would start off a little bit slower. They kind of started off a little slow, but not slow enough. They did not only win their division, they are the #1 overall seed in the AFC. That being said, if it is Chiefs Bills in the AFC Championship, they are talking about having a neutral site to play that game because technically Buffalo should be #1, but hey, it doesn't always happen that way. And then, so the Chiefs won, and then the Chargers made the other wild card. The Raiders were actually pretty close to a playoff spot. They were eliminated. I believe it was 2 weeks left in the season. Denver, on the other hand, not good. Did not do well at all. So that being said, of the 7 teams, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 right. 4 of 7, that's over 50%. I'll take that as an absolute win. That being said, the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Dolphins, I did not think would make the playoffs, and they did. So congratulations, those 3 teams. Fun fact, the 4 teams I got right were all the division winners. I just didn't predict them all to be the division winners. Next, we're going to go into the NFC. I did predict 2 division winners. This looks like I got 3 right. So I got 7 of the 14 right. The Buccaneers did barely win the AFC or the NFC South because nobody wanted to win that one. This was Tom Brady's first losing season as a starting quarterback. They finished 8-9. I had some money on them to win 10 games this season. That obviously did not happen. This is one of the first years where he started looking like a 45-year-old man. Of course, there was a lot of drama this offseason, and there was drama during the season because he did, in fact, get a divorce from his then-wife, Gisele Bündchen. But hey, if you're ever at home feeling bad about yourself, just remember, even Tom Brady gets a divorce. Nobody's perfect. And now he's only a 3.5-time Super Bowl champion. So there you go. It's starting to look good for some people now. And then the Eagles, they did end up getting the #1, or the they did win the NFC. They are the #1 seed and have home field advantage. You obviously know I'm excited about that because I have the Eagles hat on. Jalen Hurts looked phenomenal. Of course, getting A.J. Brown was a huge help for that team. But then also the defense. I believe Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave, Brandon Graham, and Josh Sweat all had 10-plus sacks. This is the first time 4 players on a defense have gotten 10 sacks. And I don't know how long. It's not the first time it's ever happened, but it's been a while since that has happened. And then C.J. Gardner-Johnson, safety, led the league in interceptions. I believe he had 5. Could have been 7, which is great because he got injured towards the end of the season, ended up missing, I believe, 5 games of the season. Darius Slay, James Bradbury, great job in that secondary. They were able to not only win the NFC East, but have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Next, I did predict the Packers to be the NFC North champions. I also had money on them to win 10 games this season, and that did not happen. That being said, they did have a playoff spot up until the last game of the season where they lost to the Lions, which knocked them out of playoff contention. The Vikings were the team that won the North. I predicted them to be a wild card. I predicted them to start off great, and I predicted them to have the NFC North up until the last couple games of the season. I did think Green Bay would take it from them right at the end, which didn't happen. But they did start off really strong. They finished very strong too, 13-4. Um, that being said, this was a team that I will say that record's kind of misleading because almost every single win that they had was in a one possession game. Um, I believe they were 11-0. Could have been 12-0 in one possession games. That's never happened before. And for the longest time, they had a negative point differential, um, which is incredible for a team with that much of a winning record to have a negative point differential. That being said, of their 4 losses, they did get blown out by the Eagles and they got blown out by the Cowboys. So that's how it happens. You win very close and you get destroyed in your losses. Um, other other champions, the San Francisco 49ers did in fact win the NFC West. I predicted the Rams and then the Cardinals to be wild cards. Neither of them did that well. In fact, Arizona at 4-13, the Rams at 5-12. Nowhere near as good as I thought that they would be. And then I also had the Saints as a wild card, 7-10, not horrible, but not good. So I did get the Buccaneers, Eagles, and Vikings. The other teams that made it, we had the 49ers, and then the wild card, the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Seahawks. That being said, the playoffs start Saturday. We have the Seahawks taking on the 49ers and then the Jaguars taking on the Chargers. Because I love doing predictions, let's do predictions of those 2 games. I do think that the 49ers win. That defense is phenomenal. They are legitimately one of the only teams I am scared of if they take on the Eagles. Geno Smith had a really great year this year. He's not going to be able to do well enough to beat the 49ers. And that being said, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, has been doing phenomenal. In his, I believe, 5 games he has started, 4 games, incredible. And then we have the Chargers Jaguars. From what I hear, Mike Williams, receiver for the Chargers, is not playing. That being said, this I feel is a toss up. I like Doug Peterson. I'm gonna give it to the Jags. Why not? On Sunday we have 3 games. We have the Dolphins, Bills, Giants, Vikings, Ravens, Bengals. Dolphins, Bills. This is an interesting one because the Bills struggle against division opponents. However, I do not think Tua or Teddy Bridgewater are going to be playing this game, and we saw how bad their offense is without a good quarterback. I do think that the Bills will win this game pretty easily. Giants and Vikings, this is a repeat. Vikings did beat the Giants not that long ago either. I believe they kicked a field goal to end up getting the win. They are pretty rested, or both teams are rested. Giants did not play their starters against Philadelphia. Minnesota played their starters for a little bit against Chicago, but did set a lot of their players right towards the end. This, I think, is going to be a fun one. Brian Daboll, as most people's prediction for Coach of the Year, he definitely turned that Giants team around. That being said, I do not trust Daniel Jones. Why? I'd play the video if I had it ready, where he had that 60-yard run against Philadelphia and then just trips because it's Daniel Jones. I do think Vikings win a close one, just like the last game they played. And then the Ravens-Bengals, this is a repeat. We just saw this game last week. The Bengals destroyed the Ravens. That being said, biggest question mark, is Lamar Jackson playing? Lamar has missed the last 6 games. That being said, I say that a lot. So if he comes back, which he's still questionable, he could come back. You never know, though. does he even want to come back? That's another really good question you need to ask yourself. Um, is it really going to matter? I don't think so. The Bengals have been playing great this season. They had that really rocky start and then just finished amazing. They've been playing very well together too. I do think the Bengals are going to win this game. And then Monday night we have the Cowboys Buccaneers. Week 1 repeat. Tom Brady is undefeated against the Cowboys in the playoffs, but the Cowboys have had one of the better defenses this season, and the Buccaneers have not been looking that good. That being said, I do think the Buccaneers do pull this one out. This will be a pretty close game. I'm not going to say it's going to be a fun game. Dak is leading in interceptions right now. I do think he'll throw a couple here. I do think it'll be low scoring. This is going to be a defensive struggle, is what they normally call it. But I do think Tom Brady does have a game-winning drive right towards the end to get the win and his last win of his career. That being said, it does kind of sound like he's going to be going to Las Vegas. Is that going to be the case? I do not know. But there are my predictions for the NFL playoffs, at least round 1. We'll get into round 2 next week. Some other news. Again, I might not remember everything, but we did have several coaches being fired. We had Matt Rule and Frank Reich in the middle of the season. I believe that was it in the middle of the season. And so far, I know we've had Lovie Smith of the Texans, Cliff Kingsbury of the Cardinals. I'm trying to remember some more off the top of my head, and I cannot remember them right now. I'm doing a quick look through without actually digging in. Oh, Denver did fire Nathaniel Hackett. Towards the end of the season, but still in the middle of the season. So we have had a couple of coach vacancies so far. 3, 4, 5. 5 so far. That could be changing here in the next couple of weeks. As far as names of replacements so far, Jim Harbaugh, Michigan head coach, we did talk about it a little bit. Also Sean Payton, former head coach of the Lions. No, of the Saints. Wow, Jacob is also in talks of joining a team. It's Denver has been mostly talked about with both of them, but again, we'll see. There might also be some other. I know a lot of people were kind of talking about Sean McVay of the Rams being in the hot seat. Coach of the Dolphins, Mike, I can't remember his last name. He's also kind of on the hot seat, which I did see a graphic earlier today. Both him and Brian Flores in their this season and last season finished at 8-8. The biggest difference, Brian Flores started out the season at 1-7. Mike McDaniel, that's right. They started out 7-3. So they did a lot better at the beginning of the season than the Dolphins did last year. I mean, he should get fired. No, that team has been plagued with a lot of controversy along with their injuries. But that's really all that I have. If you like this video, be sure to hit that little thumbs up button. It looks just like this. We will be talking a little bit more about the playoffs in the next couple of seasons. Hey, I forgot something. Here in the next couple of weeks and kind of what I'll be doing throughout, kind of talking a little bit about basketball, baseball, because that stuff's going on. College basketball's coming up too. Well, it started. But I did kind of want to do something else special that will also make me do this a lot more regularly than I was doing, kind of keep me a little bit more accountable. I want to start doing a special Why We Love Sports. I don't know if I've talked about this or not because I've had this thought for a while, but I'd love to bring people in and kind of talk about some of their favorite sports moments, some of their favorite sports teams, I'll bring up moments and they'll tell me how they feel about them, what that brought. But it's also a fun way to just talk to people. In this community that we're in, there aren't a lot of sports fans. So it's always good to have to get people talking about it because sports is kind of fun. So be on the lookout for that. And if you want to be a part of Why We Love Sports, let me know. And I will try to schedule something. But definitely click that like button, subscribe, because Aaron does a lot of great stuff on this channel. I'm giving him all the credit. Colton Roberts with the Supernova Show does some stuff also, but TMG Movie Battleground is really what keeps this channel up and running. Our movie debate stuff. He has done a fantastic job actually doing regular stuff with that. So be sure to watch some of his videos. And then also we do have our sister channel, TMG Trivia. I run singles and teams. Kevin does geek. We are doing tournaments right now. I'm doing our singles tournament. He's doing this team geek, I think is what he calls it. That's kind of that round robin or that group table tournament. And then we'll have like the actual tournament later on down the road. But be sure to check all that out. Leave a comment. Tell me something. I don't care what you tell me. But hey, from everyone at TMG Entertainment and TMG Trivia, be safe. Wash your hands. Make smart choices. Or don't. Don't care. I'm not your dad. But I could be your papa.